The pursuit of massive, instant success is an alluring, yet often illusory, quest. We are culturally conditioned to look for the seismic event, the overnight transformation, the single moment that changes everything. But what if the true engine of extraordinary achievement is not a sudden leap, but a quiet, almost imperceptible crawl? What if the most powerful force for change is hidden in the tiny, daily decisions we make? This is the core concept of compounding, a principle typically confined to finance, yet one that holds profound sway over every aspect of human life. It is a mathematical certainty applied to the messy reality of human behavior. Imagine two paths, one where you improve by a mere 1% each day, and one where you regress by 1% each day. The difference seems trivial on any given Tuesday. The effort is minimal. The slip is forgivable. However, when this 1% is applied recursively, the results become staggering. Over the course of a single year, the person who improved by 1% daily doesn't just get 365% better. They become nearly 37 times better than they started. Mathematically, 1.01 to the power of 365 equals 37.78. The person who regressed by 1% daily shrinks almost to nothing. They are left with a performance level of just 0.03. This is the hidden geometry of progress. It is nonlinear, dramatic, and often delayed. The initial stages are a valley of disappointment, where effort seems to yield no visible reward. The first few weeks are frustrating, the graph line looks flat, making it easy to quit. The true breakthrough, the curve that shoots exponentially skyward, only arrives after a critical mass of small improvements has been accumulated. This film is an investigation into this phenomenon, exploring how this deceptively simple principle has shaped world-class athletes, built enduring business empires, and transformed ordinary lives into testaments of incremental genius. We will look beyond the surface of achievement to reveal the consistent, small actions, the daily 1%, that created the colossal success we see. It is a story not about the destination, but about the profound, accumulating power of the journey itself. To truly grasp compounding, we must first look at the subjects who embody its most radical potential. Our investigation begins not with celebrated figures who achieved instant fame, but with those whose greatness was forged in the fire of consistent, deliberate practice. Consider the journey of the British cycling team, a squad once defined by decades of mediocrity and failure. Under the leadership of Sir Dave Brailsford, their entire philosophy was distilled into what he termed the aggregation of marginal gains. He didn't seek a single breakthrough technology or training regimen. Instead, he and his team broke down every single element of cycling, from the most obvious to the seemingly insignificant, and sought a 1% improvement in each one. They redesigned bike seats for better comfort. They swabbed the inside of the truck to reduce dust, which could affect the finely tuned bikes. They determined the optimal pillow and mattress for each athlete to ensure the best possible sleep. They even taught riders the best way to wash their hands to minimize the risk of catching a cold. No single improvement was revolutionary on its own. They were all small, often dull, and easily dismissed. Yet, when these hundreds of tiny optimizations were added together, the effect was profound. Within 5 years, British cycling dominated the sport. They won an unprecedented number of gold medals at the 2008 Beijing Olympics. They continued their reign at the 2012 London Olympics. They became the most successful national team in the history of the sport. Our study will follow individuals and organizations who have applied this marginal gains philosophy to different fields. We will introduce a young entrepreneur, struggling to launch a product, who shifts her focus from grand gestures to daily client outreach. We will examine an artist, blocked for years, who commits to a mandatory 5 minutes of creative work every morning. These subjects serve as living case studies, demonstrating the painful, slow-motion truth of the beginning, and the eventual, explosive growth that follows. Their stories anchor the abstract math of compounding in relatable human struggle and triumph. The central mystery we must confront is the paradox of the plateau. Why do so many people, armed with good intentions, high motivation, and a clear goal, ultimately fail to achieve lasting change? The answer lies in the fundamental mismatch between our brain's desire for immediate gratification and the reality of the compounding process. When we begin a new habit, be it exercise, saving money, or learning a new language, we expect to see results that are proportional to our effort. We want a straight line between the work we put in today and the reward we receive tomorrow. But compounding progress doesn't work this way. It is a J-curve, not a ramp. For weeks, sometimes months, the daily 1% improvement is absorbed into the system without creating any visible change on the surface. This is the zone of latent potential, a frustrating period where effort seems to be wasted. A novice language learner diligently practices vocabulary for an hour every night, but can barely hold a simple conversation after 2 weeks. An investor faithfully contributes a small amount to their retirement account each month, only to see the balance barely budge. This lack of visible progress is misinterpreted as failure. Our motivation plummets. We think, this isn't working. This psychological hurdle is the greatest killer of nascent change. It is the core problem. People stop doing the work long before the work has a chance to deliver its returns. The effort is not lost, it is simply being stored. It is like the two friends who are told a riddle: a lily pond has one pad, which doubles in size every day. It takes 30 days to cover the entire pond. On which day is the pond half covered? The answer is day 29. For 28 days, the pond looks barely covered, and then, in the final 2 days, it explodes into fullness. In our lives, we often quit on day 28, having missed the explosive growth waiting just around the corner. Our investigation seeks to find the mental models and mechanisms that allow individuals to persevere through the brutal psychological demands of this plateau. The first major clue in mastering compounding lies in shifting the focus from goals to systems. A goal is a singular event: winning a marathon, publishing a book, hitting a financial target. A system is the process that leads to those results: a training schedule, a daily writing habit, a budget, and automated savings plan. When you fall in love with the process, the outcome manages itself. The crucial discovery is that the 1% improvement must be embedded in an unbreakable, non-negotiable system. A goal-oriented person might feel motivated to train hard for a week, only to burn out and quit. A systems-oriented person simply adheres to the system: I show up to the gym for 30 minutes, no matter how I feel. The quality of the workout is less important than the consistency of the attendance. The small act of showing up reinforces the identity of a disciplined person. This is the behavioral scientist's insight: success is not about achieving a goal, but about becoming the type of person who naturally achieves that goal. The 1% change is less about what you do and more about who you become. A runner's goal is to finish a race, their system is to train 4 times a week. An author's goal is to write a bestseller, their system is to write 500 words before breakfast. The shift in identity begins with the smallest possible unit of the system, the atomic habit. It is so small that it is impossible to fail, thereby ensuring consistency. For example, instead of committing to read for an hour, the atomic habit is read 1 page. This small win creates momentum. It ensures a 100% success rate on the first, most crucial step. Once the system is activated, the momentum carries the individual far beyond the initial, tiny commitment. The real discovery is the profound psychological power of consistency over intensity. The person who can maintain a 1% improvement system for a year will far outperform the one who attempts 100% improvement for a single week and then crashes. The system is the container that holds the compounding effect in place. To understand the modern application of compounding, we must trace its origins back to the world of finance and its mathematical root. The concept was first popularized in a practical sense by Albert Einstein, who allegedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. The basic formula is simple: the interest earned on an investment is reinvested, earning interest itself. The initial growth is slow, but the principal balance grows exponentially over time. In the 18th century, thinkers began to apply this idea to human capital and societal progress. Economists observed that a sustained, modest growth rate in a nation's productivity or innovation eventually led to massive, disproportionate wealth and power. The context of our discussion takes this financial metaphor and universalizes it. The principle is our current state, our skill, our fitness, our knowledge. The interest is the 1% daily improvement we accrue. And the reinvestment is the crucial step of using yesterday's improved state as the foundation for today's 1% gain. For example, a student learning guitar doesn't just practice the same difficult chord every day. By practicing the chord well today, their fingers are 1% stronger and more accurate tomorrow. They use that slightly improved skill level as the baseline for the next day's practice, making the improvement itself compound. The critical context here is that the improvement is not merely additive, 1 plus 1 plus 1. It is multiplicative, 1 by 1.01 by 1.01. This means that the better you get, the faster you get better, because your foundation is continuously strengthening. The person who is a 10 out of 10 in their field sees an exponential return on their effort compared to the person who is a 3 out of 10. This explains why world-class athletes can make such monumental gains from such tiny adjustments. Their base level of skill is so high that a 1% change is a massive leverage point. This history reveals compounding as a universal law, governing not just money, but all forms of accumulated human excellence. The theory of compounding is not without its adversaries, creating an escalating conflict that raises the stakes of our entire investigation. The conflicting theory is the popular, media-driven narrative of the breakthrough moment or the overnight success. We are constantly bombarded with stories of startups that explode in value, artists who go viral, or athletes who achieve immediate fame. This narrative suggests that high-intensity, short-burst efforts are the path to success, which directly contradicts the slow, steady grind of compounding. The stakes are immense. Which narrative truly governs long-term achievement? In reality, the overnight success is almost always the delayed result of years of non-obvious compounding. The startup that explodes often had a decade of pivoting, iterating, and accumulating small technological and market insights. The viral artist spent years performing to empty rooms, steadily improving their craft by 1% each day until they reached the critical mass of skill required for a breakthrough. The conflict is psychological. The breakthrough moment is dramatic, gratifying, and easy to sell. The compounding process is boring, demanding, and requires long-term faith in a delayed outcome. We see this conflict play out in diet and fitness. The high-stakes, quick-fix diet promises immediate, dramatic weight loss through radical and unsustainable changes. The compounding approach focuses on a small, 1% daily nutritional improvement, one extra serving of vegetables, one less sugary drink. The quick-fix diet delivers a sharp, immediate drop, followed by an inevitable relapse and the accumulation of a long-term pattern of failure. The compounding approach is slow, nearly invisible, but creates a sustainable identity shift and a permanent result. The core tension is between intensity and consistency. Intensity provides short-term results and high drama. Consistency provides long-term results and unstoppable momentum. Our documentary argues that true mastery is achieved not by the one-off, intense effort, but by winning the daily battle of consistency, accumulating those tiny wins until the breakthrough simply becomes the moment the accumulated pressure finally bursts through the surface. Every successful compounding journey reaches a critical juncture, an invisible threshold we call the point of no return. This is the moment when the accumulated 1% gains transition from linear addition to true exponential growth. It's when the work finally becomes easier because the system itself is now self-sustaining. The point of no return is often marked by an unexpected and rapid acceleration of results that leaves the individual feeling like their success arrived out of nowhere. In the context of skill acquisition, this happens when the volume of practiced, atomic habits has rewired the brain to perform the action automatically. The conscious, difficult, energy-draining work of learning shifts to the subconscious, effortless, and pleasurable realm of habit. A musician who has practiced the scales and chords every day for a year no longer has to think about her fingers, she can now think about the music itself. Her 1% improvements are now being applied to artistry rather than mechanics. The compounding is now occurring on a higher level. In the context of relationships, this point of no return is reached when small, daily acts of kindness, communication, and trust, the relational 1% improvements, have built an unbreakable foundation. The relationship can now withstand major shocks because the accumulated goodwill acts as a vast reserve of emotional capital. The most fascinating aspect of this point is the irreversible psychological shift. The individual stops struggling against the habit and starts feeling a sense of loss if they miss it. Missing a workout feels worse than doing the workout. Not writing feels worse than writing. The new identity, the runner, the writer, the saver, has been fully absorbed. The compounded success is now protected not by willpower, but by identity. This is the moment of true power, where the force of progress shifts from an uphill push to a downhill roll, carried by the momentum of 1,000 small, cumulative wins. The midpoint of our investigation reveals a powerful and counterintuitive twist. The most valuable compounding effect is not external, but internal. The revelation is that the 1% improvement in performance is ultimately secondary to the 1% improvement in self-perception and clarity. The external benefits, better grades, more money, a fitter body, are simply lagging indicators of the internal shift. The true compounding occurs in the quality of our decision-making. By committing to a small, daily act of discipline, the individual begins to generate keystone habits. These are small habits that, when introduced, automatically cause other positive habits to fall into place. For instance, the person who commits to a 1% daily improvement in sleep quality often finds that their diet automatically improves the next day. They have more energy for their workout. Their focus at work is better. A single, small, positive change cascades through the entire system of their life. The twist is that the compound interest we seek is not just on the activity itself, but on the attention we bring to all activities. As we improve 1% daily, we become more present and mindful, allowing us to see and capitalize on opportunities that were invisible before. A business owner who commits to 1% daily improvement in reading industry reports doesn't just gain knowledge, they gain a new framework for noticing market trends. Their cumulative clarity of thought allows them to make one excellent, high-leverage decision that provides a massive, nonlinear return. This decision looks like genius, but it is the product of hundreds of hours of mundane, compounding insight. The focus shifts from accumulating things to accumulating competence. The ultimate goal of the 1% rule is not the final result, but the creation of a high-functioning, disciplined self, a self capable of continually generating its own compounded improvements in every area of life. New evidence from neuroscience and behavioral psychology provides a deeper understanding of the profound psychological impact of the 1% rule. The brain operates on a feedback loop, and small, consistent actions are the only way to effectively reprogram it. Every time we complete a small, positive habit, the brain releases a tiny dose of dopamine, the feel-good and motivation chemical. This is the mechanism of immediate gratification that reinforces the behavior. By breaking down a huge goal into a 1% daily commitment, we ensure that we receive a stream of these small dopamine rewards every single day. This frequent positive reinforcement is vastly more powerful than a massive, delayed reward. The cumulative psychological impact is the replacement of the all-or-nothing mentality with a something is better than nothing mentality. This reduces the fear of failure and eliminates the guilt that often derails large-scale change efforts. If a day is ruined, the compounding mindset dictates that you simply apply the 1% rule to the next moment, not the next week. This is what researchers call rebounding quickly. The ability to get back on track immediately is the single most defining characteristic of high achievers. The psychological breakthrough is in recognizing that a single slip-up is a subtraction of 1%, but quitting is a subtraction of 100%. The compounding practitioner understands that their overall success trajectory is determined by the long-term trend, not the single-day outlier. Furthermore, the act of consistently committing to a new habit strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning, decision-making, and willpower. The very act of showing up, even when it's inconvenient or difficult, builds the muscle of self-discipline. The 1% change is not just about the outcome, it's an ongoing process of psychological self-sculpting, refining the internal operating system one small decision at a time. Despite its mathematical certainty, the truth of the compounding effect is actively suppressed, not by a conscious conspiracy, but by the relentless forces of the consumer economy and media. The entire marketing world is built on selling the fantasy of the quick fix. The diet pill, the get-rich-quick scheme, the master a skill in a weekend course, these products thrive on the public's impatience and desire to bypass the necessary period of latent potential. The suppression is rooted in profitability. Long-term, consistent effort is not a product you can sell. Discipline is free, but the quick-fix solution is expensive and profitable precisely because it guarantees repeat customers who are perpetually starting over. This culture of instant gratification actively discourages the patience required for compounding to take hold. It sets an impossible standard for visible results, causing people to abandon effective systems because the progress is too slow to satisfy an instant download mentality. The stakes escalate here because this cultural suppression can lead to a phenomenon called habit stacking. People jump from one intense, unsustainable habit to the next, a different diet every month, a new career path every year. They are constantly resetting their compounding clock, losing all the latent potential they built up in the previous system. They are running on a treadmill, burning energy but going nowhere. Our investigation seeks to expose this narrative, demonstrating that the only way to defeat the quick-fix industry is to internalize the countercultural truth of compounding. The victory comes in finding pleasure in the monotony of small, daily actions, in the confidence that you are on the only mathematically viable path to long-term success. The resistance to the 1% rule is a resistance to delayed gratification, and overcoming this resistance is the true act of rebellion in a culture obsessed with speed. The true confrontation in the compounding journey is not with external competitors or challenges, but with the inevitable forces of regression and entropy. The pursuit is the relentless daily effort required to maintain the 1% improvement against the universal pull toward the opposite, the negative 1% decline. If you don't actively maintain a positive 1% gain, the default state of the universe is a slow, steady loss. A skill that is not practiced atrophies. A relationship that is not nurtured stagnates. A body that is not moved declines. This confrontation is a daily battle fought in the moments of decision. Do I check the box on my habit today, or do I let it slide? This is where the concept of the compounding of bad habits becomes a fearsome opponent. Just as good habits can exponentially elevate a life, poor habits can exponentially destroy it. The daily 1% loss, one missed workout, one poor food choice, one ignored email, is not catastrophic today. But when compounded over a year, that 0.99 to the power of 365 reduces your effectiveness to near zero. The pursuit, therefore, is a fight for the baseline, for simply showing up to prevent the subtle, insidious drift of regression. The most successful people are not those who are perfect, but those who are hypervigilant about preventing small errors from compounding. They have established guardrail habits that protect their core systems. If they must miss a workout, their guardrail habit ensures they make a 2-minute stretch instead. They never allow a 0 day. The confrontation is won by minimizing the frequency and magnitude of the negative 1% days, and by ensuring that the positive 1% days always outnumber and outweigh the slips. The pursuit is not perfection, but the relentless, 1% pursuit of better consistency. As the compounding period extends, the final, most satisfying pieces of the puzzle fall into place, revealing a complete model for sustainable, exponential growth. The final element is the role of environment and social context in facilitating the 1% improvement. We discover that willpower is a finite resource, but the environment is an infinitely powerful system for automating discipline. The final pieces involve what we call environment design, the strategic structuring of the world around you to make the positive 1% gain easy and the negative 1% decline difficult. If you want to read 1% more daily, the final piece is putting the book on your pillow. If you want to eat 1% better, the final piece is removing all junk food from the house so that the positive choice is the default. The greatest leverage is gained not by mustering more motivation, but by making the habit as invisible, attractive, easy, and satisfying as possible. Furthermore, the social environment is a critical component of the compound effect. We observe that the 1% improvement of an individual is accelerated exponentially when they are part of a community where the desired behavior is the norm. If the person's peer group is already focused on consistent daily learning, the individual is pulled along by the collective compounding momentum. The final insight is the complete integration of the internal and external systems. The psychological shift of Section 9, identity, is locked in by the environmental shift of Section 12, design. The consistent action, 1%, reinforces the identity, I am a reader, and the identity then naturally designs an environment, I keep books everywhere, that makes the action effortless. The system is now a closed, self-reinforcing loop, creating a permanent engine of compounded success that requires almost no conscious willpower to maintain. The primary conclusion of our investigation is that world-class results are an emergent property of world-class, daily habits, not the outcome of world-class goals. The truth revealed is the triumph of mathematics over motivation. Extraordinary achievement is not about talent, luck, or a massive singular effort. It is about the faithful, consistent application of the 1% rule over a long period of time. The formula for exceptionalism is, small, consistent actions plus time equals radical difference. We have seen this principle demonstrated across all fields. In business, the 1% daily improvement in customer service, process efficiency, and product iteration results in a company that far outpaces its competitors after 3 to 5 years, even though the effort seemed minuscule day to day. In health, the 1% daily improvement in movement and nutrition creates a health trajectory that is virtually unrecognizable from the average person's by the time they reach old age. The most profound realization is that the magic is not in the magnitude of the change, but in the certainty of the application. It doesn't matter how much you do, it matters that you do it, and that you do it again, and again, and again. The final, primary conclusion is a call to surrender the dream of the sudden, life-changing event. It is a call to embrace the quiet, productive monotony of the daily 1%. It asks us to stop chasing the external goal and start building the robust, self-sustaining system, the identity, that makes the achievement of that goal inevitable. The compounding effect is not a motivational theory, it is a fundamental law of the universe. And the only way to harness its power is through the daily, humble commitment to just being 1% better than you were yesterday. The aftermath of embracing the compounding effect is a life defined by continuous, sustainable growth, and its legacy is the creation of a blueprint for others to follow. The modern ties of this principle are everywhere, yet often mislabeled. Every major success story in the digital age, from social media platforms that gain users 1% at a time to software that iterates with daily micro-updates, is a testament to compounding. The legacy of the 1% rule is its anti-heroic nature. It deglamorizes success. It removes the concept of the superstar whose triumph is due to divine genius, and replaces it with the super consistent person whose success is due to relentless process. It democratizes achievement by making the initial barrier to entry incredibly low. Anyone can commit to a 1% daily improvement. It requires no special talent, only discipline and patience. The aftermath of this realization is a profound shift in how we approach setbacks. Since success is a long-term average, a bad day is merely a single data point in a vast, positive trend line. A setback is viewed not as a failure, but as a momentary regression that must be immediately corrected with the next 1% effort. This mindset creates resilience and prevents the catastrophic spiral of all-or-nothing thinking. The legacy of this approach is a life free from the tyranny of massive, sudden expectation. It teaches that the biggest leaps in life often come not from trying harder, but from building a better system. It is a framework for living that prioritizes longevity and sustainability over short-term dramatic flair. The most significant modern tie is in the development of personal metrics. By tracking the daily 1% actions, individuals gain a sense of control and tangible proof that they are moving forward, which sustains motivation through the long, flat period of latent potential. The compounding legacy is that of the master craftsman, who understands that every single, small chisel strike contributes to the final, magnificent sculpture. Our journey into the compounding effect of 1% daily improvements concludes with a definitive summary of its core mechanics, while acknowledging the subtle, lingering mystery of its immense power. Summary of core mechanics. The math is nonlinear. A 1% improvement compounded daily leads to a nearly 37-fold increase in performance over a year, proving that small changes are not merely additive but multiplicative. Focus on systems, not goals. Success is achieved by building non-negotiable daily systems, the atomic habits, that ensure the consistent application of the 1% game. The plateau is inevitable. The valley of disappointment is a crucial period where effort is accumulated latently before the exponential curve, demanding faith in the long-term process. Identity is the ultimate compound. The greatest return on effort is the internal shift, the identity change, where the individual becomes the kind of person who naturally performs the successful habits. Environment is leverage. Willpower is overcome by strategically designing the environment to make the positive 1% gain easy and the negative 1% decline difficult. The lingering mystery. Despite the mathematical clarity, the enduring mystery is why so few people successfully apply this principle. The reason lies in the inherent difficulty of patience. Compounding demands that we make a sacrifice in the present, doing the work today, for a reward that is invisible and delayed far into the future. This requires a profound leap of faith, a belief in a mathematical truth that runs counter to our immediate emotional experience. The lingering question is this: how do we teach the human brain, which is wired for the immediate, to appreciate and prioritize the exponential rewards of the long term? The answer lies in the ritualization of the daily 1% commitment, turning the tedious act of maintenance into a sacred practice. By celebrating the small, daily victory of showing up, we bridge the gap between present action and future reward. The compounding effect is not a secret to success, it is simply the natural law of success. The door to extraordinary achievement is open to everyone, but it is guarded by the need for consistency, patience, and the profound, quiet commitment to being just a little bit better, every single day.